Greetings. I'd like to welcome everyone in our audience today. We are very grateful that you have chosen to share some of your busy day with us. We know your time is valuable, and we will honor that today with what I'm confident will be an engaging discussion. Once again, our topic is From Documents to Dialogue, Modernizing Bank Communications with Trusted Data and AI. Our sponsor today is Precisely. Our host is American Banker, and my name is Mike Sisk. I'm a contributing editor at American Banker, and I will be your moderator today. And I am very pleased to introduce our two speakers. We have with us Christopher Cummings, Director of Product Management at Precisely, and Ariana Valentini, Director of Product Marketing at Precisely. So we are very delighted to have both with us here today. And just before I turn things over, I wanted to reiterate a couple quick things that were in that housekeeping video. We do have time at the end for Q&A. You don't have to wait until the end to put your question in the queue. You can do that throughout the hour as it occurs to you. We usually set aside about 10 or 15 minutes after the program to handle any questions from the audience. If we don't get to a question you've asked today, we'll definitely follow up after the program. So please ask away. We really much want to hear from you. We also have, I believe, 2 polls today, and I encourage 100% participation. We rarely get it, but I encourage it. We share the results live with everyone here, and it's a great way to see where everyone else stands on the issue that we've come together to discuss. So if you can weigh on those polls, that'd be fantastic. And just for your information as well, there are a couple of links in the console there that you can access. I encourage you to download those just throughout our time together, whenever you have a chance to tap into those links. So that is a resource for you there. And with that, I think I will officially get out of the way and turn things over to Ariana. Ariana, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to everyone who is spending time with us today. We so appreciate it. We know time is precious, especially when we're dealing with so many complex things like modernization, banking communications, exceptional customer experiences, trusted data, and just throw an eye into that in the mix as well. From engaging with customers in the banking and financial services industries, it's funny. Everyone is almost singing the same song, slightly different lyrics, but we're all seeing the similar challenges across the board. And if you think about all the things that are going on, there's kind of 4 key areas that we see most customers challenged in when they're addressing customer experiences and improving that next best, the exceptional customer experience. The first one is this idea of unrealized returns. We've been talking about digital transformation. I've worked in this space for 15 years. And for 15 years, we've been talking about digital transformation and all of the things that we can do with digital experiences. But the reality is that, there's been a lot of unrealized returns on digital investments. Experiences are failing to contextualize a customer's need or provide prescriptive guidance on what that next best action should be. I feel like we're always talking about customer journey mapping. What does that customer journey look like? And we've just bought a lot of things. We have a lot of things, a lot of processes in place. And, it's not working how we were hoping it was going to. The other piece is system fragmentation. So, like I said, we've bought a lot of stuff. Many places have a huge tech stack. And so what happens now is you have data quality, you have fragmentation issues, you have legacy systems that you have to address, because now the new mandate is to be AI ready, to use AI to intelligently drive and answer customer questions, to help you internally improve your workflows, to better leverage behavioral analytics and customer behaviors to provide real-time decisioning. And from that, you also need to have some base things in place to be able to overcome system fragmentation. The first of those really is, having governance over not just the data, but also the systems, the workflows, how things are going to interact with each other, explainability in those workflows, and then compliance around these critical systems. And, these are huge topics that we all have to address and look at when we're talking about customer experiences. We, of course, have AI risks too. We experience this even internally in Precisely. People say, I built an AI. Isn't it great? I built an agent. Isn't this awesome? And the thing is, it is great. It is helping us work smarter, faster, spend less time in that busy work, working more in focused areas. But there's also this other piece of it that if we're not looking at, the best practices or getting the things started in a governed, compliant way, you run the risk of hallucinations in your AI. Again, explainability, in some cases, bias. We hear less about that now as the models get better, but there's still news articles and things out there of like the AI being biased towards certain sets of customers depending on the data that was inputted. And then there's also regulatory or ethical concerns around AI too. We're all learning as we go when it comes to AI, and we want to use it the best way that we can. And everybody talks about AI replacing people, but the reality is that even if you look at kind of, I think it was Anthropic recently released a agent. It was so dangerous that they gave it to like all of their competitors first so that they could find issues in security vulnerabilities up front before they released this agent to the public. Well, guess what? Now there's a whole list of things that a human needs to do that this agent has found, this model has found, that need to be addressed. So instead of removing teams or removing people, people are now having to have a human in the loop, and you need human approval gates. You need lifecycle controls of AI and AI processes. And then finally, we have customer trust. We always want to be a trusted resource for our customers. And the thing is that, when we are dealing with kind of the 4 or the 3 above in this slide, customer trust limits the personalization. We have to have a transparent value exchange. We have to be able to obtain zero-party data for hyper-personalization. It's really about making sure that we're building experiences that don't feel creepy, invasive, but are really driving that next best customer experience. And it's not just things that we are seeing in the market. The research firm Aspire also sees this. They see this in many different ways, but the first is, audience variants add complications to addressing all of these challenges. We have people of a range of ages and experiences. And so what happens is, depending on somebody's where they are in those kind of breakdowns of demographics, they might have different things that are important to them. So, where we have someone that might be in a Gen Z or millennial band, they have much less tolerance for poor customer experiences, where if you look at a boomer, they'll kind of just accept the bad customer experience and move on. I often think of, even personally, like my father and I both started out with the same insurer. I had a very bad customer experience. I said, I am done with this insurer. I am not working with them anymore. I switched, and my dad still suffers through this billing payment process every quarter to pay his insurance bill, because he just knows that, and he knows the insurer, and he wants to stick with that, which that's fine. But if you're looking to grow and retain customers, you have to understand that depending on who you're serving those communications up to, this also adds another layer of complexity in addressing CX challenges. And then when we look at what drives a customer to switch, or what's making somebody switch, it all comes back to the data and how communications are being delivered. So when you have incorrect information on billing statements or even mobile experiences, and then communications are really difficult to understand, these are the reasons that folks tend to switch providers. We even see this at Precisely with our customers. A lot of the conversations that we have right out the gate is, man, we are losing a lot of customers. We're getting high call volumes into our, service arm. People don't understand their statements. All of that costs money because the customer experience is poor at the upfront. And so addressing this, and as soon as you can, right at the upfront, is so, so critical. The other thing, too, is that as we expand into all of these different new capabilities of AI, or we're just looking at, the digital world in general, data security concerns also become really important. Making sure that people feel comfortable giving you their most precious information, and making sure that that data is secure at all times, is really, really important. And so I've given some reasons why there's some challenges and what's driving customers, but I think we actually have a poll to get your input on what is happening here.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, our first poll is here, and everyone. So I'm going to read through the question, read through a couple of answers here, and hopefully that gives everyone some time to make their selection. So is your organization, in your organization, what's the biggest barrier to improving customer communication today? Is it legacy CCM systems and technical debt, or data quality and fragmentation, or regulatory and compliance constraints? It would be organizational silos with lack of cross-functional alignment, or budget issues of unclear ROI. So again, is in your organization, what's the biggest barrier to improving customer communication today? All right, cool. I'm just going to hold this open for a few more moments, gather some more input here. I've got a handy little tool that lets me see exactly how many people are participating. So I like to get a good representative number, as it were, here. So, okay, good. That's a nice percentage. I guess, yes, very nice. I will go ahead and share results right now. Okay. Let's see. So 53% organizational silos and a lack of cross-functional alignment. That definitely was the runaway answered with this one, and then followed by legacy CCM systems, 17%, data quality, 13%, regulatory and compliance, 13%, unclear ROI, just 3%. Thank you for that. Ariana, over to you. I mean, were these results sort of in line with what you'd expect to see, or were there any surprises here?
Yeah, we have a team here at Precisely called Data Strategy Consulting, and they go in a lot of times. They're almost like a internal consulting arm of Precisely to help people address challenges with their data and how things are working. And it always feels like the organizational silos and that lack of functional alignment is usually where the problem starts. And then it's almost like, as your data is shown here, it's like a waterfall down, right? Like, we have these silos where people are just buying things independently of each other. And so they're just doing their things. They're building their own communications. It's like, oh, I don't need to talk to cards. I could talk, I'm banking or I'm checking, and this is credit. There's kind of like that church and state almost separation that we see often, that kind of has this legacy tool piece. And then, that only contributes to kind of these other things that are underneath, right? Like data quality and fragmentation. If everyone is misaligned or people are working in their own silos, then you're just kind of lacking all of that good data that you could have to build up that customer experience. So now that I've talked about the poll, I'm excited for our next poll that'll be coming in a slide or two here. Let's talk about what needs to happen. So there's a lot of things, and as I said, these are big, meaty topics. We could spend a whole hour just talking around the governance of communications or the best practices and workflows. What does a real omni-channel platform really look like? But from a high level for what we have today, so you can get more discussion from us and hear about a customer story that we wanted to share with you, there's kind of three key buckets that we like to think about. The first is technology. So being able to have modern omnichannel platforms for communications that have AI powered or AI assisted capabilities to help you improve those workflows and deliverability of communications, and that also are not just using that type of technology, but also have like a secure hybrid or cloud environment that allows for connectivity into many different things that could contribute into a communication is so critical. That's one of the ways that we're able to drive in-channel personalization and proactive outreach. The other thing to consider is that as we build out AI and AI agents across an organization, you can build an AI agent in your department, someone else can build another agent in your department, but you really do need a knowledge graph or a semantic data layer in between those two things to effectively communicate, so that you may be able to say, hey, this persona in A is associated with this persona in B, and this is how these two things should interact with each other. The other piece of this is that, when we come to data, we need to have, we precisely, we say, trusted data, but it's really decision ready data. You need data products that, not data, you could purchase data sets, of course, but like, your own internal data products of, making sure that that is ready for AI, that it has what it needs, and that you have the funding to be able to deliver this in a low latency way, approve, govern inputs across risk, fraud, underwriting, servicing, all of those things that you need to have those checks to be able to move forward with. And then having an embedded intelligence, so much like that semantic layer that you have, that for like kind of the groundwork of like the AI outputs and lineage and explainability, you also kind of have to have this embedded intelligence and behavioral analytics that enables decisioning for things like fraud or risk or CX at the point of action. The more proactive you can be in that customer experience using intelligence, the better. That provides like those really marquee, exceptional experiences that get people locked into your brand. The other piece is the human element, which seems like to be the number one problem everyone on this call is dealing with, is organizational. I think thinking about CCM 15, 20 years ago, we were all buying products, we were all buying a bunch of stuff, and we're saying like, this will solve it. And so, it was kind of like that product focused centric approach. Whereas you kind of have to have this organizational shift where you're thinking not just from the product, but also from a cross-functional person piece. So this may mean having more conversations with people in IT or the chief data officer, business line organization. Many times I've seen people get really hung up and stuck when it comes to that, like, interacting with another BU, because many of us work in such big organizations. It's like, again, someone in one department is doing something completely different for CX, for CCM than another. But if we would only have a conversation between our two units, that would make that experience so much better. And then I mentioned this earlier in the first slide, but really when you're thinking about, AI, and now we're talking about, agentic AI, where there's decisioning happening and no human is involved at all. It's just two agents talking to each other and making decisions. That initial input and having classifications and lineage for communications and compliance with human approval loops and gates is so incredibly important for the success of any type of effort across the organization. I can't emphasize that enough. Like just building something and saying it's smart and you're going, it's that old adage, garbage in, garbage out. And it's going to be the same for AI too, unless we're having those conversations and having a human in the loop. And I think we actually have another poll kind of talking about this topic as well.
Excellent. Yes, indeed we do. Here we go. You want to skip over this one? Okay. All right. Great. So this is our second poll, and same drill as before. And this one is, where is your organization in its CCM modernization journey? Is it still relying primarily on legacy print era systems? Is it in the process of evaluating modern platforms? Is it actively modernizing and you're partway through? Are you fully modernized with omnichannel delivery, or you're not sure and we don't have a formal CCM strategy yet? So again, where is your organization in its CCM modernization journey? I'm just going to hold this open, and just a little reminder too that we do have some time for Q&A. If you want to put a question in the queue, definitely encourage you to do that, and we'll handle it either here, or we'll definitely follow up with any question you have after the program if we don't address it here today. So please do ask away. All right, good. Another nice percentage of participation here. Really appreciate it, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share the results here now. Okay. So 44% say actively modernizing, or you're partway through it. That's followed by 33% saying in the process of evaluating modern platforms. So that's almost I think it's 77% there with those two responses. So still relying on primarily on legacy is 11%, not sure 11%. no one has a fully modernized with omnichannel delivery. So again, let me ask Ariana, bring you in. Are these, again, sort of what you expected to see, or surprises?
Yes, and I was going to say, if there was anyone who answered that they're fully modernized and all set and everything was perfect, I want to talk to them, because I too would like to know how that works. But yeah, this is very common to what we see. And actually, I know, Mike, we skipped over that last slide, but I'll just pop it back up super quick. So, when we talk about investment and where people are prioritizing, it feels like the results of this poll really do reflect this research from Aspire, where we see businesses are prioritizing a communication strategy and governance and looking at actively shifting to modernization. So it's nice to see that this data and the polling data do actually line up quite nicely. So that's always a good thing. Love to see when the research and the live polling is aligned. When we look, like, double clicking into this a little bit, like, what does this mean for different areas of financial services? How does this apply to retail banking? So some of the big greenfield areas, like, we talk to our customers a lot and we see folks, actively trying to modernize on, are things like onboarding and loyalty. So being able to have that initial experience with a bank, and the onboarding is incredibly easy. It's very smooth. Rewards and loyalty management are well taken care of. It's very clear when somebody's going to get something back for working with you. And then, of course, if there is aggregation, that account aggregation is very smooth and people don't really feel like their experience is disrupted. I can't tell you personally how many times I've had account aggregation be like the bane of my existence as a customer. So having these types of experiences that are just very, very smooth and leave a good taste in a customer's mouth is always good. Another piece that feels like it's always been a work in progress is digital documentation. We have this need, we have to legally hold on to digital documents. There's this digital document storage issue, but there's also this ability to provide proactive, personalized guidance. For example, I have a banking app that every time something slightly changes, I can go in, I can see, and it'll say, hey, Ariana, like, your statement has changed here. Why don't you check this out? And so it's really easy for me to sift through all of the information. And then I also know that if I ever have to go back and pull an old statement or document, I've got it at my hands. And then even more so is this ability of optimized payments. So the ability to streamline and personalize payment experience is becoming more and more important. I was at the gym the other day and there was an ad for an Apple card. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not an Apple user, so it was news to me. If it's old news to all of you, well, I'm an Android user, I admit it. So one of the things is like, wow, that feels like that's going to be a really interesting customer experience, because Apple is known for just delivering these exceptional CXs. And I kind of want to sign up for this card just to see what that customer experience and journey is going to be, because it feels like that would be one of those very bespoke, making you feel really good. And I think, like, optimizing payment methods as people adopt also things like Venmo and forgetting the other one because I don't use it. The other payment offering, I'm sure Chris, like, once he gets off, he'll be like, it's Klarna. All of these different payment experiences are so important. And it's not just, retail banking that has an opportunity for improvement, and there's ripe opportunities for delivering omnichannel experiences or taking advantage of AI. When we think about corporate banking and insurance, from a commercial banking perspective, there is this opportunity to use comms and AI and intelligence as a way to really build relationships and have relationship management and decision support with that. Integrating accounts and treasury tasks, embedded financial solutions for SMBs. Like, there's a lot more room here to do, kind of use intelligence to kind of create almost like a more bespoke, almost consumer type experience. From insurance, it's the same thing. Like, I know customers tend to hold on to their insurers, but, people do shop around. And when you have the need to call upon your insurer, you want to have some speed, some fairness in claims. You want to have the automated processes, the uploads, the faster payments. I actually did a presentation on this back in 2019 in an insurance conference, and it was basically like I had a tree hit my house, and I took everyone in the room through my process of filing a claim and saying how like this insurer made me a promise they would be there for me. They would have this great CX experience when I needed them, and it was awful. And so, it's one of those things like, yes, maybe there's less interaction here than, commercial banking or retail banking, but there's still room for leveraging excellent customer experiences and AI to improve the customer journey. Also, the other thing is as people shop around, being able to tailor a purchase journey by a product, by a line, and then trying to reduce the churn as people do shop around and look for price or value trade-offs is also super, super important. So I've spoken a lot at you. I'm going to actually turn the mic over to Chris, who's going to talk you through how Precisely can help you, but more importantly, a real customer that we've worked with on this type of CX AI journey that they're going through.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ariana. So hi, everybody. I am indeed excited to talk through this case study. It's actually one of my favorites. If we go to the next slide, we'll see here that the situation, so this is a client who provides mortgages. And mortgages are actually a great use case for today's session in particular, because they represent two things. So they're one of the highest revenue products for many retail banks. And at the same time, they represent one of the most complex communication challenges because they're so boring, right? And that was kind of the problem here. Very important, not very interesting. And the situation with this client, so the mortgage contract explanation process, so actually walking a customer through the terms of their mortgage, it was taking an average of about 3 hours. So 3 hours. So some of us will struggle with a 30-minute webinar. So imagine a 3-hour mortgage conversation. And by the end of it, as you might imagine, customers were exhausted, right? They're feeling overwhelmed. So it's not a good customer experience, kind of to Ariana's point. And also for the bank, so they found that these exhausted customers, well, guess what? They were significantly less likely to engage with related financial products, right? So after all that, they didn't want to hear about home insurance or a home equity line of credit or a credit card that's going to give you cash back on your home improvement purchases, right? They just wanted to get out of there. So you actually have this compounding problem where you've got one of the most important financial moments in a customer's life, and it was turning into their most friction-heavy interaction with the bank, right? So you've got this horrible nexus of a trust and a revenue problem at the same time. It wasn't good. If we go to the next slide, we'll get into the solution here. So the solution combined two capabilities that are core to Engage One Rapid CX, which I'll talk about in a moment. So we have personalized outbound email, and that's connected to an AI-powered personalized interactive video. And what that enabled was, instead of walking the customer through the mortgage contract in person or over the phone and exhausting them, the bank delivered this quick, engaging, personalized video to the customer before the contract signing. So they sent it to them through email, and the video itself was dynamically generated from the customer's actual loan data. So it's got their specific rate, their actual term, the monthly payment, right? It's not a generic video, right? It's not a generic explainer. This is the actual story of their mortgage told in a simple, contextual, engaging way. So it's got beautiful imagery. The video experience itself is narrated by an excellent AI voice. It's a very human-sounding voice, real, friendly. You've got the relaxing music underneath, right? So this whole vibe, being created, and the experience helped the customers to absorb the information on their own time, interact with the video, so they could ask it questions, click around, and then go into the bank for that final signing appointment and feel informed, be excited, right? Instead of feeling overwhelmed and stressed out with all this information coming at them. And before those customers actually came in for the appointment, the bank had clear measurement data on the video engagement as well, right? So they could see exactly what the customer watched, what buttons or links they clicked on, how familiar they were with different aspects of the experience and what it meant for the mortgage, and other interactive features. And then the really genius thing, which I think this was on them. I don't think we came up with this, to encourage customers to engage with the video experience. What the bank did was bake in a really smart incentive, so that customers who watched the full video received a preferential interest rate. So that was a really clever mechanic, because it serves the bank's engagement goal, right? It's an incentive to watch the video, but it's also delivering direct value to the customer. So you got this great experience made even more impactful. And the results, if we go to the next slide, they were significant across multiple dimensions. So 50% of viewers requested additional financial tools or products after watching the video, right? So that's your cross-sell impact. You now have a customer who feels understood, who feels like they now understand what's going on, and that made them dramatically more likely to explore additional products, which, right, is what the bank wanted. So this is just one example of how you can turn like a transactional kind of moment into a more compelling dialogue that actually deepens your customer relationship. But that's not all. The bank also saw a 45% reduction in explanation time. So the fatigue, right, being lifted from everybody. So customers who had watched the video, they needed way less hand-holding at the signing. And then that, of course, had multiple impacts. So for the customer, obviously, but then also the advisor, right? Their time is freed up, appointment times dropped, and the bank staff could focus more on value-added conversation. And finally, customers loved it. So 90% of them gave positive customer feedback, and that's the experience metric, right? It's the one that feeds into retention over time. If we go to the next slide, we'll dial in on more of the how here. So this is how all of it comes together at Precisely. So kind of walking through the slide. So first things first, it's the data foundation for your communications. So on the left, you see the systems that you're most likely already running. You've got your core banking, your CRM, and all the rest. So RapidCX can connect directly to any of them through APIs. But there's one critical piece here that's different from a lot of other options out in the market, and that is the Precisely Data Integrity Suite. So if you're living in a world like we saw through the polling and through some of the research, where your data is siloed and fractured, then this is something I would recommend that you learn more about, because the Data Integrity Suite is going to establish the truth about your customer before any communication is sent. And it does this by creating a shared foundation of trusted data and metadata, so independent of where the data actually originates from. So what the suite is doing, it's integrating customer data from multiple source systems, then validating, standardizing, and reconciling key attributes. So that's really important. So if you imagine you've got multiple different systems in place, they all have a different customer status, or maybe there's a delinquency flag over here that this other isn't aware of, right? So it's reconciling all that and then publishing those trusted current customer attributes back to your downstream systems, including RapidCX. So you have this current unified perspective that can help prevent scenarios where a customer, say they receive an important update about your account, and it references a product they no longer have with you, right? We can help you avoid those kind of scenarios. So whether it's through direct connection between your system and RapidCX, or through this more shared foundation through the Data Integrity Suite, RapidCX is going to leverage your data to send those critical customer communications. And once that data foundation is in place, that's where RapidCX takes over, and that's where a lot of the real day-to-day work actually happens. So moving into that kind of center area here, RapidCX is your centralized, governed communications platform. It's got data-driven business rules, controlled templates, approval workflows, and full audit trails. So this is essentially where your communication lifecycle actually lives. You've got creation, approval, all the way to delivery and archiving. And for many of you, this is a space not just where a lot of your day-to-day activity would take place, but a lot of your current day-to-day pain actually lives in that kind of space. The good news is this is also where Rapid CX can help you, and where the ROI will be the most tangible. So, for example, suppose a new regulatory change drops. Without this kind of governed communications platform, this what could be a relatively simple update could take weeks or even months to go from draft to production. Why? Right? You're probably already thinking through it right now, right? It's easy to update. Except the teams are manually chasing down every template that could be affected, right? And that is not an easy task. And we have clients where it used to take upwards of 90 days to propagate one change, a simple change, where now with Rapid CX, it takes a day, right? So it's a huge weight off of their shoulders. And again, the reason why their templates are now centralized, they're governed. So now when something needs to change, it's easy to find, it changes once, and that change propagates to where it needs to go. Along with that improvement to change management, we have automated workflow approvals as well. And what does that do? Now you have legal, compliance, the business owners, they're all brought into the process at exactly the right moment. And the system is generating the audit trail automatically as part of that workflow. And benefit here, does this sound familiar? Oh, I need to answer this request that's come in from the regulators. Let's search for the emails. Okay. Oh no, actually that happened in Slack, right? We're getting rid of all that, right? So you're not reconstructing your approval history anymore from different threads, and it's just there. It's ready for you. The platform is cloud native, and that means no infrastructure for your teams to manage. The flexibility to scale as your communication volumes grow. So you've got the flexibility there, as well as the capabilities and the workflows that you need for this end-to-end process. And that includes AI capabilities. So what's really great about this, you can choose to enable them or not, right? So it's all under your control. And these particularly AI agents that I'm thinking of, they're in the template workflow. And what they can do is analyze your communications and provide feedback. They can look at things like readability, for example, give you scores on sentiment, and then provide recommendations for improvement. And those recommendations go to your human reviewers who ultimately decide how to proceed. Again, to Ariana's point about having the humans in the loop, very important. We fully support that. And an example here would be, suppose you've got a collections notice, and it's written in a language that is maybe overly negative, or maybe it's actually too positive, right? So that the agent can analyze that, flag it, and then suggest a rewrite. The human reviewer gets the recommendation, they get the context, and then they can decide whether to accept it or not. So the AI helps, the human actually decides. And then working our way across this slide, the last piece here, so all the way on the right, we've got the delivery layer. So all the channels that matter for your critical customer communications, from digital channels like email and SMS to more traditional channels like print, to archiving, the call center, to newer capabilities like personalized interactive video. And what we're addressing here is, well, I was going to say omnichannel, and I know that's kind of a dirty and loaded term, but I'll say so. Omnichannel as defined as not about being present on every channel, but more about the communication experience. And Ariana can correct me if I'm thinking about that incorrectly, but that's what I'm thinking. And what that means in this context is that suppose you have a customer, they start on one channel, and then they call your contact center. And what do they get out of that? With Rapid CX, where your customer gets is a consistent, informed experience, because everything is running through this unified platform with shared data and shared governance. So that means when the customer calls, then they've got a question about the bill, right? They receive something in the mail, they don't understand it. When they get in contact with that customer service rep, the CSR can see exactly what was sent to that customer. They see what you see, so they don't need you to do something like read the text of the message to them, right? I've had those kind of calls, like, why do I have to narrate this to you? Like, why can't you see it, right? So they see what you see, and they know when the communication was sent, they know what channel it was sent on, and all of that helps the CSR respond better, respond faster, and answer your questions, and maybe even resend the document to you if that's what's needed, right? So that's what makes the experience for the customer feel like, okay, I'm working with one organization, they've got their act together, and it's not, multiple different departments who aren't integrated very well, and this is very frustrating, and I hate you, and I'm going to switch. So taken together, right, this is what modernization actually looks like in practice, right? There's technology involved for sure, but it's not just a technology upgrade. It's governance, it's clarity, right? It's upgrades across all those dimensions. So you get greater control, greater consistency, faster response to regulatory change, and communications that do feel more like a dialogue than kind of a musty old document. So there's a lot of text on that slide. Hopefully you stayed with it. But with that, I'll pause here and hand the mic back. Thank you.
Yes. So, we do have some discussion topics, but I just wanted to very quickly, before we transition to the discussion topics, just talk about like key takeaways of like this section of the presentation. So the first is, communications drive retention. It's one of your most consistent touch points that you'll always have with your customers. And know that there's a propensity for, a bad customer experience depending on that person's demographic and their tolerance for a bad experience. That 3-hour plus experience, I can tell you I would not sit through if that was my mortgage lender. The other thing is that accuracy and clarity are very critical. Making sure that you have clean, quality data and making sure that communications are easy to understand are so important, and a big reason why people also switch. And then Chris mentioned this in the case study, but also as he was going through the overview of Rapid, is like, modernization across 3 dimensions. We have technology, we have data, we also have organizational change. These things all have to happen hand in hand and go together. And then, the strategy leads investment. A lot of times, we'll go into some place and they'll say like, I want to fix this. And you say, well, what's your end goal? And no one really can articulate the end goal. And so it's like, first, think about the problem you want to solve, really come in hyper-focused on that, and then understand how you want to address that. This is especially important for AI. Again, creating agents for agents' sake or building an AI into something for the sake of AI is not going to help you in the long run. Making sure that you have a very clear strategy of what needs to happen is going to be so critical for the next investments that you make. And so with that, we did have a couple of discussion questions we wanted to hit. And so I think the first one, maybe Chris, you spend a lot of time with our customers. What have you noticed that's changed today versus maybe 18 to 24 months ago?
Oh yeah, that's a big question, and there's been a lot of change. So I'd say 12 to 18 months ago, we were mainly having questions with financial services organizations about whether AI belonged in customer communications. Right? And there are all kinds of articles. I know the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? They were warning financial institutions. This was 2023, so it was more kind of around chatbots and how those could be putting you at risk for non-compliance, with different federal consumer protection laws. They're giving out wrong answers, right? Or you're not protecting privacy or data and whatnot. I would say those kinds of concerns and obligations are still out there. And in some ways, they're even more important, right? Because the emergence of agentic AI. So now you've got systems that can orchestrate these complex business process workflows. So the risk profile is actually fundamentally different than kind of like the chatbot situation where it's answering like FAQs and things. But with all that said, business conversation has kind of moved on from should we use AI to how do we do it, right? And how do we do it in a way that's responsible, that scales, and does not sacrifice compliance or trust. So it's a pretty big shift from kind of experimenting with AI, asking like, should we do this, to, okay, actually, how do we do this? How can we govern it properly? And especially around controls like explainability of the AI and audit trails, right? Making sure that there is that human in the loop oversight. So I would say the biggest change is kind of the if question is settled, and now it's how. Like that's the main thing.
I agree with you. I think the risk tolerance for AI, like it's funny, like there was a lot of curiosity about it, but like we're to your point, like the chatbots folks were like a bit more hesitant or like digging into like the security piece of it. It feels like now people are just like, how can I do this? Like let me do this and run.
Yeah.
Versus the speed of adoption of this technology has been so fast compared to other areas. I'm always shocked like at how quickly people are adopting it. And to what you were saying, like governance and things are so important because you don't want to build something bad that's going to hurt you later, whether it's internal or external. Man, I what does clean data, isn't enough mean in practice? Oh goodness me. This one, I'm thinking, why did I put this in here? This is a hard one, Chris. I don't know if you agree, but
yes, but a critical one.
Yes. You can have clean data, but there's all these other things. Like you can have clean data in a silo by itself. I think it's like it's clean and integrated is kind of the big thing for me. At least that's the way I think about it. I don't know if you disagree at all.
Oh no, I'm with you there, right? Like you can have, I mean, it's not quite lying with statistics, but in some ways, like it kind of is, right? Like because you could have data that's technically accurate, right? So the address is correct, that the name is spelled right, you got the account numbers matching and whatnot, but you could at the same time still send a communication to your customers that feels cold, or it's not relevant, or maybe it's poorly timed. So you got data quality, I would say, is kind of the table stakes. But then what's going to create a more compelling and superior customer experience is going to be connected data that's contextually applied, right? Like I think you've got, so in financial services, you have multiple, suppose you have clean data, your customer has a mortgage, they've got a checking account, they've got a credit card. But if those three product lines live in separate systems, right, which they often do, then the communications coming out of each one can feel like they're from three different companies, right? So that's one issue. And then on top of that, you could be in a situation to what we saw earlier, right, where you got all these silos in place. So it could be that a specific department actually owns a channel, right? So you've got billing and renewals and risks and collections, and they're all operating in total isolation from each other. They've each got the correct data kind of based on their focus, but they don't necessarily have the context, right? Kind of the full picture of who that customer is right now. That likely doesn't exist anywhere in there. So, like the customer's credit score, right? That could be accurate. Okay. But their recent job loss isn't reflected anywhere in any of those systems, right? So you have this situation where maybe the customer gets a collections notice for a missed credit card payment on the same day that they get you're a valued customer, right, kind of offer, right? It's messy. And I will say, for me, like, so when I won't name the bank to kind of shame them, but for many years now, including within the last 6 months or so, I will get messages from my bank to download their app, which I've been using for 10 plus years. It's just a very minor thing, but it drives me crazy, right? Because they have my contact information correct, right? They know that I'm a customer. The data, to the point here, like, it's clean, but you're missing some context in there. So you get this, for me, that's just more kind of like a lackluster and kind of like laughable situation, but it could be much more serious depending on what like the customer situation actually is.
Yes, I definitely have had those instances like that, and we don't shame here, but because we work in this space, we're just so hyper aware of it. It is funny to have those experiences as like a practitioner in this space. Yeah, I've definitely had banks where I've called and like credit card and banking or like checking are like so completely different. And so like I get simultaneous statements. It gets a little confusing. What am I looking at? What's the most important piece of the information? How can I get that in one thing? So totally agree there and have been there before.
Can I give you one more?
Oh yeah, sure.
It's exceedingly minor, but so again, kind of same organization. They'll send an email, and the email has my name in it. And it's okay, proper upper and lowercase, and that's nice. And then they'll send another communication where my name is in all caps, right? So it's like screaming at me. It's drives me so crazy, right? Because it's just like, I know that your systems aren't working the way that they should, right? It has no other real kind of impact. But again, it's just like another symptom, kind of a funny symptom of something that could be really not funny.
Yes. Well, if there's any banks on here that have Christopher Cummings as a customer, you may want to look up. You have an app problem and a name capitalization issue.
Normalize that stuff.
Yes, please. That's our plea. That's our big plea of why we came here today. I think we probably have time for maybe one more. Do you think, Mike? And then if there's any Q&A, we could take it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think this one is a good one because we do talk to people a lot about this. Is like, do you need to rip and replace legacy CCM? And I feel like my non-answer is it depends on what it is. If you have something from 30 years ago and it's sitting in your print service provider, probably yes. I don't know, Chris. What are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, that's a good one, right? It's either it could be a fantasy or it could be a nightmare, kind of depending on who we're talking with. I think the reality probably from most organizations who we're on with right now. So you've got template libraries where you've got thousands of these documents. You've got approval workflows baked into your process. You can't just kind of flip a switch and make all that happen. So the approach that I think I would generally advocate for, and actually it's really what we've built kind of Rapid CX around, is more of a modular modernization approach. So you can tackle the evolution in stages. And like to give one really specific kind of idea. So for a starting point, migrate the communications so they're actually the hardest to govern and the ones that are most expensive to change, right? These are the ones where the regulatory change takes 90 days, right? Like, and trying to get that change across different channels and whatnot. Or situations where you can't easily demonstrate, say, to an auditor what was sent and when and in what version. That could be a mortgage statement. It could be a regulatory notice, right? It might not be. It's going to depend. But the main point, I think, for this question would be just find where that pain is, find where that cost is, and start there.
Yes, I would say probably to this one too, as you were talking, I was thinking about homegrown solutions become extremely problematic. So it's not legacy. We're not talking about like legacy competitors of precisely, but almost like thinking about, something somebody stitched together 30 years ago as a science project. And now are looking at, now you have to implement AI on top of that. And that person has retired. That is another thing to consider when you're talking about legacy CCM communications. It's kind of like also those old homegrown things as well. So, yeah. Oh man, you could tell we could talk about this all day. I think we'll pause there and just see if there's any questions from the audience, or if we were super thorough. We got nothing. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually an excellent note to wrap up on. We're really close here to the top of the hour, and we always like to give folks, a little time to, shift their attention, and knowing that so many people have something at the top of the hour, and they're back to back. So, first of all, Chris and Ariana, thank you so much for your expertise here today. Really, really a great discussion. Appreciate you. And everyone in the audience, very much appreciate your time and the fact that you participated in those polls so well. I really appreciate that. As I said, we'll follow up with anybody's questions after the program. So please, thank you for that. And with that, I guess I will officially wrap it up. Wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope you'll join us again here very soon. Thanks so much.